Okay. Thanks everyone for sticking around um, and for joining for the third installment of the Mapping the Pipeline education series as part of Policing Justice here at PICA, the Portland Institute for Contemporary Art. Um, we've got a couple of special guests, and again, for the archive, we just had two prior series, one about student engagement as a part of this Mapping the Pipeline project, and specifically at Jefferson with Zamaj Mitchell Johnson, and then the statistical information that's a part of this exhibition. Um, and so now we are going to be talking about those we remember. Again, for the archive, this Mapping the Pipeline installation has 6 locations: Cottonwood School, King, Tubman, Jefferson, 3 schools that are in the Albina region of Northeast Portland, and Columbia River Correctional Institution, which is a prison in Northeast Portland within the city limits. At that prison, we met some folks, Armon included, who did these interviews, which gave precedence to much of the recorded content that's a part of the installation. Armon is originally from Beaverton, and also featured in this exhibition is Derek Clark, his diary, and he's from Tigard. And then, as mentioned with the statistics, we looked at east of 82nd. And so one of the islands we referred to as Beaverton Tigard east of 82nd. And it is modeled after Finley's Sunset Hills, where Armon, again, founder of Tin Can Phone, is laid to rest. And then also featuring Derek Clark, who was shot and killed in Clackamas County. And so those are the two folks that we are memorializing as a part of the Mapping the Pipeline installation. And so, of course, we have guests Sarah Miles, Derek Clark's mother, Laverne, will you say your last name for me? Klutzikowski, who is Armand's grandmother. And then we've also got Queaz Adi, who's a co-pundit, co-founder of Tin Can Phone with us, who knew Armand and has life similarities to Derek. So we're going to jump into a little conversation, but perhaps maybe we'll want to have you introduce yourselves before we get started.
I'm Sarah Miles. I'm Derek Clark's mother.
Oh, I'm Laverne Klutzikowski, Armand's grandmother, and he is my friend as well as my grandson.
I'm Queazati, the misfit.
Can you hear all that pretty good in the? This particular panel is interesting and tender. I think that the other panels were elucidating context, and perhaps this will too. However, I think while Armand and Derek's presence and voices are quintessential elements of this exhibition installation, um, more so than perhaps other elements, their presence is not fully embodied, and perhaps because all of the materials in which are a part of the exhibition come from things they did prior to their passing. And so, one of the things when I was getting folks ready for this panel, I said that what's more important than the circumstances of their passing is to get a feel for who they were in their life. And so, perhaps Sarah, you'd like to go first to just talk a little bit about who Derek was as a young man. Do you like it in there, or do you want to just hold it?
Oh, hold it maybe. I feel weird late. Um, like I said, I'm Sarah Miles. I'm Derek Clark's mother. Derek Clark was I don't know, he was a special soul. I would say that he had a very big heart. He loved very hard, and people loved for him very hard. he really wanted to make a difference in his culture, and he was a mentor for Inside Alliance, which he was a part when he was in OYA, Oregon Youth Authority prison, when jail when he was 17 till he was 23. He did almost six. He got Measure 11 at age 17, but instead of going to jail and not doing anything about it, he actually graduated high school, went to college for 2 years. He was on honor roll, which is really hard in jail. And that's when he met Anna and Inside Alliance, which kind of became his family there. And he learned how to think differently. And the program's not really like a program. It's just kind of like, you can have those thoughts, but you can let them go. It don't have to, control you. And I think that he had a lot of pent up anger, maybe because of, things in his life, his dad kind of not being there. And I think he struggled from being black and white in a white community, which is a big deal, a big thing. But back then I didn't want to raise him in a community where I was at, where I was almost getting shot every day. So I moved him to Tigard. There was some issues with racism in Tigard, what he went through, stuff like that. But he really wanted to be a mentor for kids. So when he was in jail, he saw how they were treated. These kids come from horrible families. I mean, you should hear the stories that they would tell me. And I think Derek knew that he didn't come from that, and he had love that a lot of these kids didn't ever have. And he would have to stick up for them. They would try to eat their food, and Derek was always really there for these kids. Even after he got out, he would always answer his phone. Anybody ever call him, he was always there for him. And he really wanted to change. He was becoming a teacher for the Inside Alliance, and his brother was too. So they really wanted to change the community here in Portland. And, because of there was so much violence going on at the time and people dying. I mean, it still is. And he wanted to talk to those kids and, and get them to stop killing each other, basically. So the loss of Derek has been really hard on the community itself. The people that he had saved, some have gotten lost and without him around, and I feel like I have to be there for them. So I really do try to take care of his friends a lot. And what he really wanted to do is help change the system, and I think it really does boil down to starting with the kids in OIA, helping them out, seeing what's wrong, getting them help, mental, drug, alcohol counseling, whatever they need. A lot of them have been abused, and I think that really stems on why we have so many problems with drugs all the way down the line, is because it doesn't really ever get taken care of in the beginning, or people are just not caring about the kids going through these problems. So that's really what I'm trying to I want to have a program at OIA. I want to work with you. I've been talking to you about that. Even getting a program for kids that when they get out, how do they even know how to pay bills or use a debit card? They don't care. They just throw them out in the street with nothing. And half of the time they don't even have family that care about them. But you go visit your kid and there's always the same parents, and these poor kids want love and need hugs, and they need family and they don't have it. So I'm trying to do that. Another thing that I'm going down and doing is helping other impacted families in police brutality. And my investigator and my lawyer, my investigator is the best in the world. We've been helping other families and trying to get to the core of, the police brutality and them lying and blatant lies that they do and what they do to the family. It's just absolutely insane. So those are the two things that I think that really need to be addressed in America that hasn't really been fully addressed and taken care of. It's like they don't care about the kids in jail, and they just keep reoffending, and people wonder why, and it's not getting taken care of. So I think those are the two really things that his legacy would be, and I know that's what he would want, so that's kind of what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to be advocate for him. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. Again, I think in a peculiar way, Derek's voice in this exhibition is from his writing while incarcerated. So there's a certain lens on what is present, which I think is deep and important, but he's not talking about himself in a way that acknowledges these things that you've described. And it's also great, again, a part of this education series and for the archive to hear and understand the lack of being equipped post prison. I think that, again, when initially invited to be a part of the exhibition, we're thinking about working with folks from McLaren, who is where Derek was incarcerated, and the story that ends up being included is mostly the voice of men who are currently incarcerated at Columbia River, talking about their experiences being incarcerated, like policed and et cetera. But what is not explicitly stated kind of anywhere is the lack of preparation post release to kind of create any sort of meaningful shift in a dynamic that kind of landed folks in prison. So yeah, thank you for sharing all of those things. Next up, for now, we've got Laverne, who's Armon's grandmother. And again, for context, Armon, we met at Columbia River and was really the instigating ideator for what became Tin Can Phone and for what was a more deeply meaningful engagement that I was doing that then became what is housed at this exhibition. And all of the voice that was collected in those interviews certainly influenced me then, but is now a part of the exhibition and is the other publication that's available to take away is transcriptions of all of those things. So it's really, again, a product of Armon's work. But Laverne, do you want to tell us more about Armon as a living being?
This, this might be better. um, well, I've known Armon since he was born. I was at his birthing, so I, I, it's hard. I have a great, great love for my grandson. Okay, I have a great love for my grandson, and I walked with him through his youth, being a baby, growing up, and saw things that were happening in the educational system. As a grandmother, I, I didn't always know how to deal with it. I felt like it needed to be his family, his parents' decisions, but I was always there for him. And he'd tell you that. Every game and everything that he did, I was a part of with him. And I saw this bright young boy as a 10-year-old become involved with marijuana. And at that point in time, I didn't know very much. I happened to be not a product myself of the marijuana system. I tried to learn and know more about it. And I don't think I really grasped the impact that was having on his life. And so he was a very intelligent young man. He wanted to succeed in life, but yet his emotional and probably he played sports. He probably at some point had some brain damage that may have occurred. And still he went all the way through college, was graduated from college, got out to see the world, went into Chile, and more of the drugs and alcohol from the time his college age just was a problem that he just couldn't seem to move beyond. And he talked, I've talked many times with him about it. We tried to get him treatment, and I am in the medical profession myself, trying to find avenues for treatment, trying to find avenues for help was even difficult for me, and I knew the systems well. And, but I was always there for him. And I know when Armon met Michael in prison, and the tin can and the forgive me, commentaries that he did, and he loved interviewing. He loved people, and he loved knowing about people's lives from all walks of life. And the other thing about him is that he was biracial. He was Iranian, white. And at the time, I didn't think too much about that because he grew up with we had all cultures in his home, or in a part of his home life. And at one point he said to me, he says, "Grandma, you really don't know about black people." And I says, "I do too." I says, I had a niece and a sister that was white and black. And I says, "I know." And he said, "No, you really don't know. You don't know about all the problems and the issues and things." And I said, so we didn't go there that much. And it wasn't until I saw him as he got out of prison and saw his kindness and caring for all people from all different walks of life. And that it was nothing for him to sit down on the streets of the homeless and talk to them and, just be a part of it. Part of that was he did that when he was not always under influence, but also when he was. And it came as a great shock to me in a way for his death, because he had got through his probation. And I remember when he came to the end of his 5-year probation, just elated and thanking me for all that I had done with him and just been there. And I was just there for him, wherever he was. And it's like I woke up in a way I had always seen all these issues. But really, it wasn't until I really met Michael that I really grasped and my own belief system from childhood was that all people we're all alike. There's no difference. We're mankind. God made us all. And God's love for us was for every person. It made a difference who we were or where we were in life. And coming from a spiritual side, I questioned God to a point where is God in all this? And yet I know the God that I know is a personal God. It's not just the God of the heavens. It's a personal God that sent us His Son for our lives, and that He loves us. And I got angry at the systems. Particularly, I got angry at the mental health systems, the healthcare systems, and also Armon introduced me to knowing and really looking at our penal system and how that is not I guess I wasn't unaware. I was unaware of how the economics of our systems were rather than for the human life. And so all these things have been building up in me. I just see all these things. I have no, um, I've never been a real activist, but I just know that Armon would want me to kind of follow through because he really struggled with the, particularly the penal system, and that he wanted to see changes in that area and how. We never did talk about a lot about it, but some of that he did, and it. I see what he was doing, and I have no. I just know that the pain that I've gone through, I'm just one of thousands of people that the pain has been there. Just thousands of people, and but he was a great guy and a kind soul. And I know he made an impact on many people in his life. And I think his life, God has another plan for his life, greater than his life on earth. And I can only put my hands out and know that something will come from that. What, I don't know. But this is a part of it. I just wish there were hundreds of it out there that could hear. And, and to me, it just needs to have much more impact on people. I think that's all I can say for right now.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know it's hard, and it's I don't know, maybe I wear it well, but I feel like I'm at a pinnacle of unwellness in my own life. And it's hard to be an agent of platform. I mean, hard. I guess I should say it's bittersweet or sweet bitter. It feels really special to be. I don't know. I think so many projects that I do, people really attribute the thing happening to me, where like only recently, and as the project has shifted, Buddy is becoming more on the mic, and I'm like, if Buddy wasn't running all the back end, this thing never would exist. And it's similar with Armon. I mean, in such a growth point of this project, Armon was not actively a part of it. But if Armon didn't start the project, it never would have happened. And so it is special for me to be an agent in the different lives, folks who are here before and here to hear Zamaj. I mean, I think that's very direct, something that I'm doing where a young man is like growing from that activity. And in some ways, I feel I mean, Armand is a perfect example of someone who I was like in their life and they still couldn't make it. And so I feel complex and hard feelings about the work that I'm doing and I guess to try to make it the sentiment brief. I'm currently, I mean, this panel is important to me in different ways, but a part of it is I'm currently working with Buddy and Queaz and the folks on the project to like develop our institutional influence because the individual influence is not enough to shift even within one life. I mean, it can, but I feel like the odds on that are not good. But I'll hand it over to Queez. I think I'll give you like a hybrid comment. You can answer it one and the other, or feather them together. I feel like there's ways in which your personal life is similar to Derek's, and then there's ways in which that life and landed you inside and meeting Armand, and you also are part of the origin of this project. Yeah, in what ways do you know Armand that was impactful to you?
Yeah, that was brother for sure. Like I was telling Granny, our mom was like a big part of me being here right now. Just interviewing me when y'all first created Great American Stories. his intriguing way to encounter and share space with everybody, no matter what walk of life they was in. I noticed it, and through the interviews, his non-judgment of all the different characters that were presented. Deeper than that, though, coming home, there's not too many relationships that comes from the inside and actually have a long lasting on the outs. And one thing I come to believe is sometimes the most important thing you could loan a friend is an ear. You have to be able to hear them without having answers for them. Some people just they work it out themselves through venting to trustworthy people. And I learned with Armand that sometimes he just needed an ear, and vice versa. Our relationship was really built off embetterment for each other and wanting to pull the best out of each other. So he was like my, when you creating a thing or you had these thoughts about a thing, but you really can't present it. He was the one I could present it to, and he's like, "Nah, bro, that's hella weak." Or he like, "Man, you wanted something? Like I'm really feeling that." And he was that person for me, and I was that person for him. I always salute him for the work he was putting in, not just in the community, but with like the food cart situation. He had the best food carts in Portland, where most people see that he was just eating and I guess having a thing. I seen that he was trying to bring betterment to every interview he did and the people in the interviewees. It was kind of bigger than just the food, it was the people. And like Miss Laverne said, he was always a people person and a person of the people, which so am I. That was brother, and I said that's brother because he was trustworthy with my emotions. He was trustworthy with some of my insecurities on growth and where I was stepping into in life, where I lost a lot of childhood friends and where I lost a lot of what I would consider homies. He stepped in and became family. So forever doing this work, like the reason I go so hard at this and stay so in tune with Tin Can Phone is because of Armand. My brother Ben, rest in peace, they go hand in hand. Um, he believed in the misfit. He believed in my ability to reach the people, my ability to help heal the people. So through him and through his belief, I keep this going. He gives me great belief, So Armand was special for sure. I'm sorry to both of you ladies. Y'all lost special people. Y'all were the creation and the building of some very special people, and I honored them. With Derek Clark, I didn't really know, bruh, but I feel his energy. I read his diary, which felt invasive, like I was invading, but then at the same time, he wrote as if like he wanted it to be presented, as if he knew that his words would get out to the world. And reading his diary, reading some of his writings, it was like a beautiful confusion. Um, he expressed that he didn't know how to help people, but the one thing he wanted to do was help people. I know that confusion because before getting involved with Michael and Tin Can Phone and really stepping into this arena of life, I've always been a helper myself, but I never understood it. I never could identify with it. I never knew that it was like a thing, you know? So reading his writings, I felt a great connection to the person that he was growing into, not who he was or how he seen himself, but the things that he wanted to do. And through those writings, it was like an electric shock to me, being able to identify so closely and I mean, from to the dress, to the look, to just everything, it was just like, I guess, mirroring. I was like, damn, like, I feel that. Like, I really felt it because I spoke those same exact words to myself so many times before stepping into this arena and saying that I'm gonna dedicate myself to helping. I'm gonna dedicate myself to the betterment of the people. So I'm just thankful for Derek Clark and his words and the work he was putting in without even knowing that he was doing it. It was a beautiful confusion. And I hope that every one of y'all take one of his diaries and find life in it. You know, through these two gentlemen, it just gives me the motivation to go harder. Like I know I've done a little bit and I've brought light a little bit, but to know how bad they wanted to change and change the narrative, I feel a duty to keep going and go harder and go harder. So I'm sorry to you ladies again. I hope through what I do, what I say, and how I live, that the memories and the will of y'all lost ones will continue to live on through me. It's the only thing I could hope.
Thanks, Queez. Has always, since the origins of this project, been an eloquent contributor to how we see this. It's funny, I guess maybe it's just a part of my life. One of the folks in the audience I spent time with at Standing Rock, and I was thinking a few things. I referenced it about working with young people that waiting until like the putting your head under the tank shred is a little bit too late to be trying to stop something terrible from happening, and also thinking about spending 5 months there. um, I was pretty depressed afterwards. I think for several reasons, but yeah, I continue to circle back to this work. Again, I do it in a way, and perhaps there's a numbing that I'm also doing that allows me to be so close to it, and for so long. But again, it's something that came up, everyone kind of referenced, that there's just not enough actually being done for folks who are getting out. But I mean, also, a lot of my work is rooted in preventing folks from even ending up in these circumstances. But I think I mean, my language around it is inadequate, but maybe I'll try to break it out. I mean, the term parole exists, for folks who are less aware of it. It is kind of, you have meetings with a parole officer, but there's also classes you have to take. You also take polygraph tests. The individual is responsible for paying for both of the classes and the test. And so the programs are or inadvertent is maybe not the right word. They are quintessentially um, burdensome to the person being rehabilitated, as well as something we've debated in the show's history is the use of the term adult in custody, which is the totally whitewashed terminology that both prisons utilize, though in conversation with Queez is actually a preferable term because inmate or prisoner or these other things have negative connotations and language around them, and adult in custody is a bit neutral and can be politicked around. But even this like weird semantic debate, Queez has also said things like, the classes that I would facilitate, um, and others in collaboration with, but also there's other classes. They would say that the COs don't even want you to be taking these classes, because the classes humanize you, but there's such a dynamic around a desire to be able to dehumanize the folks who are currently incarcerated. And so this is a longer meander, or can be, but it's all starting to make me think about, or I'm kind of guess prefacing the comment, for both Sarah and Laverne to contextualize for the audience, like, when do you feel like it started to go wrong, and what was the dynamic that led on a path to perhaps no return.
My son, incarceration. Well, Derek, I mean, that's why I said a lot, when he found Inside Alliance. I think that he struggled with, and he did talk about this in his journal. Um, he struggled with thoughts, and then he would act upon it. he did say something about he thought that he had an overactive part of his brain. Um, and he had found that out when he was reading a book when he was in jail. And it really kind of opened his eyes. And he said, "You know, Mom, I think that I feel emotions more than most people do. And it's part of your brain where you feel emotions extremely, any kind of emotion. And it's very extreme." And I never even thought about that, because, growing up, he was a smart kid, but he did get angry and he would, yeah, he would be very, very happy or very, he could go both sides. So when he did get in trouble, he was kind of in this area in his life where he wanted his dad around, and his dad was doing drugs, going down a really bad time in his life, and it was a time where I moved, and I said to him, "Well, if you want to be with your dad, go live with your dad." Well, he went to go live with his dad, and his dad was on drugs. His dad kind of let him him and his brother do what they wanted to do, and they ended up hanging out with the gangbangers, and it was just only a few months. So what kind of ended him up to jail was they set up this guy, a weed guy, to buy weed from him, and then they took it from him. Well, the weed guy back then had a medical marijuana, so he called the cops. Then my son was found with the weed. So my son literally got almost 6 years for weed, robbing a weed man. So, which, and that's another thing is black and white people get such different you know, penalties when it comes to that. I mean, he went to. There's so many kids that were there for even worse things that got less time than my son did because he was a black kid. I truly believe that was why. But all in all, I told him because when he did get arrested, the cop did scream at him and say, "You run, I will shoot you." And him and his brother were going to run. And I said, "I think, the reason why this happened is because you would have died, if you would have ran. And you're here for us, you're alive." And so that was kind of always our thing. And like I said, he learned a lot about himself in jail. So when he got that Inside Alliance, he learned a lot. He changed so much, and he changed me. He truly would tell me to calm down. I can hear him say it in my brain. He says it to me all the time. He'll be like, "Mom, calm down." I'm like, okay. And I listen to it, and I listen to him still, and he has such a big spirit. I can still hear him. He still guides me. But unfortunately, he had to do his time, and he did. Help change Measure 11. He talked to the governors and everybody. Like he got Measure 11 changed because Measure 11 used to be you had to do your whole time. You had no you didn't get out early for good time or anything like that. Well, he got it changed where you could get out for if you did good time. So he was really proud with that. Unfortunately, they didn't, backtrack it or whatever. So he had to do his whole time when other people were getting out before him when he made, that change. But I was really proud about that. He wanted to do more things in the legislation, change a lot of things, and now I know a lot of things that need to be changed, unfortunately, and that's really where I want to do. And there are so many things that need to be changed in the system. I mean, the system is completely garbage, unfortunately, and needs to be thrown out and started over. I mean, and police reform, there is no police reform. I mean, it's just, it's basically the culture. Police culture is the problem, and they keep getting away with it. And and unfortunately, even when he was in jail, the people that work in jail don't care about the kids, and that's really unfortunate. If you want to help these children, I mean, you shouldn't be working in juvie jail with these kids. You should try to help these kids out, and that's one thing he really wanted to do is help these kids, so they don't keep going down that. He just always wanted to be brothers with them and be there to talk. So I think that once he kind of realized who he was, and he changed himself, and that's when he gave back, and he would go with Inside Alliance to like No Shoot Portland events and talk to kids, and that was really what his path was before he died. Like he had just talked to he was going to be a full time and go down that road, and he had things and goals to do, and unfortunately he got cut short. But he was a confused kid, and I know it was hard for him, for being half black and half white, because he would always say to me, "Mom, they don't look at me as white." And I'd be like, "Well, you are, I know you don't look like it." And he'd be like, "Mom, but the cops don't look at me as white. I'm black." And it kills me, because like he's right. I mean, they don't. I mean, they look at him as a black male, and unfortunately treat him like that. But he was so smart. He had I mean, like Walida, our friend Walida, she was like she wanted him to be a lawyer or a teacher, and he was gonna do that. He was thinking about being a teacher, and I was like, "You can be a teacher, Derek. Help the youth. I mean, do a lot of things that you're doing. I mean, that's really what he wanted to do." I applaud you for that. That's great that you do that. But yeah, he was a good kid growing up and everything, but I just think that he was trying to find himself, and when he got in trouble, he found himself, and he had to, unfortunately, in jail. And he learned that a lot of things need to change out here, and unfortunately, when you're a criminal, I mean not a criminal, but if you're a felon, it's very hard to find jobs. And he was looking for jobs everywhere. I mean, I look on his email and like looking for jobs at Plaid Pantry, and like it's hard to find a job, and that's really a real problem too. Is the stigmatism you have as a felon, and even if you're a kid and you did it, like who didn't do things when you're a child? Like I never got caught because I was white. But anyways, he really wanted to change a lot of things, and I just feel that I can't let that stop, and I know that you feel the same way. And he or both our children wanted the same kind of things, and I just have to keep going for him. That's why I push so hard, because we can't let these things keep going. We gotta stop at some point to help out the system, change something. And I know everybody says change takes a long time, but why does it have to? Like, we need more people. Like she said, we need people to help change or want to help change. And that's the problem. A lot of people don't. But anyways.
Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you. Was on the panel, the kind of initial panel for the opening of the show, and I think this happens to me all the time, but it's particularly memorable and relevant to this context. Someone stopped me on their way out, and they said, "Oh yeah, the work you're doing is really amazing." And I said, "Well, you could do it too." I think both between going to the prison or going to schools, I just showed up. I just kept showing up, and I have my own particular talents, and perhaps someone couldn't be me, but it doesn't require someone to be me, be like me, do what I do, and know what I know. I guess when I used to talk specifically about youth engagement, I would use the analogy of like, "Oh, do you like planes and make model planes? Just make model planes and then do that. And if you keep doing it, it will have an impact." And folks who were here at the prior event, they saw Zamaj was like, "Oh, I did this and I did that and I remember it." And it just was stuff we did. And when I talk about the work that I do, I say that my goal is not for the young people I work with to become artists. And I use the example, like if they become a post worker and they have a family and they enjoy their life, that's it. That was what the goal was, to send them in a direction of having a fulfilling life. So all of this also makes me think about how Armon he would say to me, he's like, "You're my favorite artist," which I think was just his bravado. I'm sure he had other favorite artists. But he would come to me with a lot of his concerns, perhaps due to my knowledge of his predicament and my own professional position. He was one of the reasons he stopped participating in the show was that he was deathly afraid of being found out. That he was so capable of moving in the non-carceral world that he was afraid that if people knew what his history was, that they would reject him and keep him from having opportunity, which is true, as Sarah mentions. Derek was looking for jobs, and Queaz has similar challenges of looking for jobs and not being able to find something. Well, I mean, actually, Queaz is quite good at it, being really open and honest about his circumstance and getting supported. But also, like the more recent job that he had, that was kind of a windfall for him was like a gas attendant. And one of the reasons that was great is he's very convivial, and I don't know if you saw, he had this Trauma Almost One outfit, which is his brand. And so he would like sell clothes while he was like pumping gas. And so, but it's that level of ingenuity that are like most of the guys I end up working with, they either have that, and that's one of the reasons we're working together, or they're just like way out there. And even if they have talents, they struggle to do them enough or in a way to be successful. And so Armon had it all. And so he would come to me and, when he was trying to get the job that he has, he was like, what should I do? Should I say something or not? I don't know. And he would agonize over this. And I can't remember if he started saying something or not. I want to say that they like learned later and didn't care, because he's so talented. So anyway, my question to you, Laverne, is similar. Like, when did it go wrong? But also, he had this job and he was making plans for his future when he had an untimely demise. Yeah, like to maybe also share tension around his like burgeoning success, and perhaps that the ways in which he would kind of falter at those times. You can hold it, or if you just talk from there, it'll probably.
Yeah, there are a lot of questions in there. Um, I know I'm trying to. Well, I think part of it, he came from a culture that I know that his dad wanted him to always um, excel, and the culture was that you there. And I don't even there's a term called taraf, and I don't know a lot about it, but you were to always say the good things about people, and not ever and anything that was negative you never ever brought up. And I think his culture was that partially he did not want to let his family down. He didn't, and he just didn't know how to go about that. I think one of the things that we haven't talked about is mental health issues, and there are probably some mental health issues and some of the things in his life that maybe hadn't either got either diagnosed or treated. There could have been some of that because it was progressive, and what I can't answer that question because I don't know. I just know that he had many people that loved him, his family that loved him dearly, But he also was a young man who had a lot of deaths early on. His mother and dad were a guardian for their friend's daughter who came into their home, who had challenges, and she was on drugs and she kept struggling herself, and then she died at 21. And her mother had an auto accident, and she died. So he was a young kid, saw her mother die. Then she saw, and he was like a sister to her because they'd grown up together. So, and then got into high school, and one of his best friends died from tragedy, from a suicide. So he saw lots of death, so who knows what the issues were? I don't know. I really can't tell you other than that he kept putting one foot in front of the other, and he just didn't know where to go. And drugs seemed for him. He wouldn't take any other medical drugs, but drugs, the street drugs, was what he thought that would take care of him. And alcohol was a part of it. And and he lived in a home where alcohol was used often. And so it's hard for me to answer that question. And I'm a woman who wants to know the whys and the wherefores. I spend a lot of time researching in a lot of areas, but the biggest thing for me was that I knew I just had, like Queasy said, to just be there as a friend, just to be somebody to listen to. And so probably my motivation is drug and alcohol and usage, and how that's a triple effect that goes down to all the other issues, many of the other issues in family life, and how the breakdown of our families. There's just, it probably starts a lot with the breakdown of our families. And so I think there are so many avenues that need to be quote unquote fixed, that I think the message I would have is that to give every individual to say, where can I make a difference in the world? There are many ways we can make a difference in the world. Smiling is a difference in the world. Being there for somebody is a difference in the world. When you get into a marriage, what is marriage? What's it about? What do you know? And we've been a kind of a throwaway world. We really throw away anything of value. If you want to take it from families down to we throw away new things. We don't reinvent things. There's just so many things. And I know I can't really say what really went wrong. I know I would feel like I would have to be more equipped with the statistics of those kinds of things, but I just know in my gut, and having lived 86 years of life. And for me, I think it's looking at not only the physical health, the mental health, the spiritual health. The spiritual health of the individual is as important as all three of those. And that, for me, is that I know from my own self that knowing that the spiritual side of you needs to grow as much as the rest of you. And And I account for my belief in God and His purpose. And I know in my lifetime I've been a better speaker than I am now, as I'm sure it has to do with the emotions behind it. But I think Queasy says it right. You just need to listen and be there for people. And each one of us has to make our own decisions. And whether it's for good or evil. And there are many people in our world that make choices for evil as well as for good. I think the number one thing is to remember that love conquers it all.
Yeah, thanks for that. I think you raise a lot of really fascinating contexts, bringing up mental health, and you had said something else: mental health, families, um, and I don't. Hmm, I guess just the way my own mind tackles these things is like pointing at the issue doesn't feel. I feel like that's why I am the kind of artist that I am, because I used to make these objects that simply pointed at the issue, and it didn't feel fulfilling enough for me. Um, and so I've had thoughts around engaging parents of youth that I'm working with, because I've been in situations where I'm working with a young person who's like out there, and is fascinating because as an artist, people just look at me working with a kid and they're like, wow, cool. But then I send the kid home to whatever is going on over there, and it's not, this little art project is not gonna fix the problem. And I think that the lives of a parent who's struggling in ways where their child's life is hard, is a hard, you know, target audience group to engage and make a difference in. But it's to that degree that the work needs to be happening. And then when you talk about mental health issues, I mean, as the general populace of anyone listening to this in the present or the future is likely on the wavelength, but that is not the overarching societal concern or awareness around the damage that an unhealthy thought pattern can, as you use another term, um, developing or something, but debilitative as it builds over time. And so these things are incredibly complex. I don't know. It's great that in programming that I support facilitating, that other people are bringing them up in a more nuanced way. I feel like as an artist who's further from them, I'm just pointing, and when someone's talking about it in their very embodied experience, it's at least in some form useful to a listener to get exposed in a very genuine way. Um, but the auspice of this panel is not to solve that issue. I just wanted to respond that you really brought them up in a poignant way that really stacks into how these things take effect. I think, do a little time check. We're already kind of surfing the edge. Um, I have short clips of two different segments to share with the audience. Is it minimized? Um, the first of which is, now I remember something I was thinking to say. So I spoke to Armon. He called me at like maybe 11 p.m. I was getting ready to fly to somewhere in the South, Kentucky, for a wedding. And I talked to him for a while. He was under the influence, and that wasn't the first time something like that has happened. And he, in fact, sounded cogent in a range of my talking to him under the influence. And so we chatted for a while, and I was like, I got to go to bed. I have a flight in the morning, but definitely call me tomorrow. And that was the last time I spoke to Armon. And then I called him like every day for weeks, and it didn't, that I had feared the worst. And it was at a later point that I told Buddy and Queaz to like kind of like scan the different kind of prison network, Facebook, whatever is going on. And it was Buddy that ended up finding out the news that Armon had passed away, and was unfortunate timing. I found out one day before the service and was able to make the service. But Buddy produced this reel of, we had actually just recorded with Armon an episode like weeks or a month prior to that timeline. So this is for you all to see. Uh, on the board, perhaps whatever cord this is plugged into is something. It's whatever this is. Yeah. Buddy, I'm going to pull this out and play it just off this. Yeah.
All right, are we ready? You're listening to the Tin Can Phone podcast here at KBOO Portland 90.7 FM. Listen every single first Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. Or you can stream this on kboo.fm/tincanphone. Tune in at kboo.fm or 90.7 FM for more show. One more time. It's harder than it looks. I do this with my videos.
As you can all see, Armon was a natural. That was, again, post his retirement from the show, so to speak. He came back and always said he would, and hung out with us. And that he was scheming on a plan to move out of the country at that time. And again, when we talk about mental health and substance abuse, it takes just one instance of ideal circumstance. And then I'll allow you both to have closing comments, but this is a trailer that was produced by Buddy with video support from Katie Rose, who was a student who designed, student at Reed who designed the Derek's Diary for Takeaway. They did some of the videography for this. We'll check this out.
Now I know they were just totally lying to me the whole time. The investigators, everybody lying to me. If I had the lawyer I have now, things would be so different. I completely believe that they would have gotten in trouble for what they did. Yeah. Is this your daddy's car? Is this your daddy's car? Yeah, your daddy? Can you say dada? This is why I'm here today and I'm fighting. I'm gonna fight forever. Because racism, it's plain, simple racism. Say his name! Derek Clark! No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace! Derek Clark! Name his name! Derek Clark! Time is the healing, so Derek Clark! Picking up the pieces of these broken children! And I'm letting them go. Derek Clark! We are never going away, ever! Thank you.
So, incarceration, a lot of like what's going on right here. There's a lot of shootings, a lot of killings that's going on out here. And I know from when I was heavy into the street life, a lot of the reasons why this happens is misplaced hate. And I know because I had a lot of that misguided anger as well. It expands beyond race, culture. It's about a human experience that we're having. And it's about better trying to understand your human experience.
Your worst nightmare, bitches.
I hope whoever does see this, that it gives a better understanding and that could be beneficial to anybody and everybody.
So the all this work is continuing, despite the hardness of it. And I'll allow you two to make some final comments to close us out.
I guess I would say please support us and our family and Derek, because he really wanted to change the world, and if he has to change it this way, unfortunately, him not being here, he's still going to. I'm gonna make sure of that. And also, I'm gonna make sure that what he wanted happens. And I really want to make sure that everybody knows who my son was and what they did to him, because everybody needs to know, because it's absolutely horrible. And this is why I want my son's legacy to be a positive one, because I don't want people to look at him the negative narrative that they put out there. It's all lies. They cops lie about everything that comes out of their mouth. And so I really want to show people who really Derek was. And this is why I was so happy he put this journal into this. Thank you so much for this, you guys. And I'm obviously going to work with you guys for a very long time, forever. I'm very, very blessed to have these people to help everybody to help me and my vision of what I want to do, what Derek wanted to do. So all I want to say is this is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. I'm going to make sure Derek and your grandson change the lives of many people, and the only way to do it is to do stuff like this and raise awareness of what's going on. And I just wish people would really look at people instead of what they put out there, because Derek was a wonderful man, had the biggest heart, had the most love for people, and he was our protector, and he's truly missed. But thank you so much for giving me the platform and putting his journal out for other people to be able to read it. And I do think that he did write that for other people to read it, and I know a lot of people have learned a lot from it. So I thank you guys and everybody for that.
Yeah, thank you. And for the listeners, actively, Sarah's suing Clackamas County Sheriff, and we intentionally avoided that topic for this panel, but there's more to come. Laverne?
I said it before, is that I believe that Armon's life was for a purpose. What the purpose is, I don't know. I believe that part of the purpose is for bringing his own family back together again, because we are estranged. And that's part of it. Part of it is for the written word, and not only written word, but the video words of his, have an impact on lives. And where I'm going with this, I'm not sure. But I know that the God I love, through as a Christian, and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, is in my life, and that's where my hope is. And I want that message, the spiritual side of life, to be experienced by all. And I also am very grateful to Michael and the Tin Can for speaking up, for taking time. You know, it was no, I believe in serendipitous type of living. There was a reason why Michael showed up at the service. There was a reason for Armon being in my home at the time a lot of this happening. There were reasons for this, because I believe in hope. And I believe in that it doesn't just stop here at this, what we're doing now. It will move on. And I'm not knowing how it will move on, but I know it will. And I know each person in this audience, whether it's audience now or an audience later, will stop and think, what do I need to do with my life, whatever that is. And knowing that everybody has a purpose. And then I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you both for your time. This has been moving, and I know we all got to move. So thanks for being here.
You're listening to the Tin Can Phone podcast here at KBOO Portland 90.7 FM. Listen every single first Tuesday of every month at 10 a.m. or you can stream this at kboo.fm/tincanphone. Tune in at kboo.fm or 90.7 FM for more show.